So you sort of touched on this in the last question, but we're just hoping you could elaborate on the evolution of the funnel and the sort of political split of it. You mentioned that the members sort of
Yeah, we were talking in the last when we were talking about, I was talking with you about gender, right? And the conversation led me to this rupture, right? When you ask a question about the evolution of the funnel, how did the funnel, what was its trajectory, right? At least over the time that I was involved with it. Gender remains in my mind as the trajectory. And on the surface of gender, like on like a carapace, or a layer, a turtle shell over top of gender, is the physical appearance of the art, right? How it is. So there's this debate that on the surface looked like it was all about formal matters, right? And about art forms and art values. But under it was a big, larger question around gender. And another thing that was a feature in this was power, right? Always read Foucault, because it's true in the artist-run center thing too. It's the circulation of power, in this case the circulation of money, government funding, the circulation of commercial gallery, exhibition records, the question of engagement in international festivals and other kinds of how power circulates. These networks, like in the Latourian way, like actor network theory, these things are all kind of put together into one ball, and that ends up being what happens. In the beginning, when I first started going to the funnel, it was an extremely fun place to work. It was a situation where you felt like you could it was a very DIY environment. It was about creating a full service operation for artists where you would have a kind of a local node in a network of artist-run centers. We were a local manifestation that connected us with the whole world of experimental film practice, all of its constituencies. And it did that by providing distribution services and catalogs. Not just exhibition catalogs, but also catalogs that just included descriptions of everybody's work. This is proto-internet, way proto-internet. Before the internet, there was the network, the eternal network of artist-run centers, mail art, M-A-I-L, artist communications. These were all methods where the most important thing wasn't the product, I think. It was the network. It was about being able to circulate between places and have the opportunity to have your work circulate as well, and hopefully you with it. People were constantly kind of on tour, and they were inventing, parodying the institutional culture, mainstream culture. So the funnel was DIY, very highly local. You know, like I say, there were 60 sort of people maybe who were always there, taking the workshops, putting films in the joint screenings, writing, volunteering, showing up. And then there was this whole world of other artist-run centers that were doing similar kinds of things with experimental film and other practices. So quickly though, it became apparent that there were lines in the sand between different interest groups. They had their own magazines, like Influence represented the experimental film side of things quite a lot. You'll see interviews in there. I don't know if there's one with Jack Smith, but there's certainly one in there with Ondine. And, there's lots of different artists in this issue. There's Kraftwerk and the Lounge Lizards, and, you'll find amazing philosophers like Virilio and Baudrillard and stuff, and artists writing, all kind of, this was one particular type of artist-driven content. I think it's a bit more funnel-like. On the video art side, you would see magazines like Fuse, right, which were more about cultural politics, local cultural politics, and they represented the issues of questions of things like race, gender, and identity in ways that almost seem to kind of own those issues. So we see a line in the sand kind of happening, as if experimental film is defending itself from cultural politics, social politics, and trying to defend the purity of experimental film form, which, if you were to distill it, it involves rephotography, right? Processes of reclamation, of alteration, optical printing, proto-compositing, montage, the process of like hand making, and also the sense of the kind of film as a philosophical text, or the film as a theoretical intervention, or the film as a... On the other hand, then you've got the video artists who are working on like the video as a kind of a advocacy statement. So maybe during the early years of the censor board fights, in the early 80s, 1981, we start to see the breakdown of relations between the funnel and some of the other artist-run centers, because of the fact that the funnel did agree to comply in a very limited way with the censor board requirement to provide documentation of the films that we showed. And the other galleries and artist-run centers did not. The funnel was really pushed hard by the Ontario Censor Board, more than some of the other centers. But people were angry at the funnel for not holding their ground, and it affected festivals and it affected other centers. So that's the beginning of a kind of, the bunkerization of the funnel. Now, then comes, with people like David McIntosh at the helm of the funnel, I really see that as the flowering years, to me, of the funnel. That was when the funnel brought in the most amazing international artists, like Jack Smith. That's when we did, Dot Tour did that incredible workshop event that lasted weeks, with, I think it was weeks anyway, it felt like weeks. Klanaris and Tomadaki, Greek lesbian filmmakers, and when we had, when I did the catalog in a different voice, that exhibition in conjunction with YYZ, so we were cooperating with other galleries that involved, or language and representation was a bit earlier, it was 81, but again, it's an interdisciplinary, the funnel was participating in an interdisciplinary practice with visual artists and really interesting conversations with very well written critical writing and thought through artist writing. And I think that the breakdown happened between old visions and ones that were more, maybe politically informed, maybe just different kind of, maybe we didn't seem, like some people, their idea of what the funnel would be was it's more firmly ensconced in a kind of outsider DIY zine-like position. And the objection from some might have been that the funnel was just getting too easily integrated into the arts system, including its discourses around gender and identity. Maybe it was just some people trying to hang on to the power that they'd always had there, never letting it go. Because, we do have an awful lot of examples from those days of men kind of running the show in these artist-run centers and being reluctant to give up their kind of corporate CEO-like hold over, whether it's A-Space or Fuse or even GI or the funnel. I get killed for saying that, but that's how I see it.